The blood from her bare feet left crimson marks in the pristine snow. Each footprint a testament to desperation that drove Olivia Owens forward through the Colorado wilderness on that bitter January morning in 1882. Behind her, somewhere in the darkness before dawn, her husband's ranch house still smoldered, and she knew Marcus would come looking once he discovered she had finally found the courage to leave, to run from the nightmare her life had become over the past 3 years of marriage. The cold bit through the thin cotton dress she wore, the only thing she had grabbed before fleeing into the night. Her teeth chattered so violently she thought they might shatter, and her fingers had gone numb an hour ago. The sky was beginning to lighten, painting the snow-covered peaks in shades of pale gold and pink, beautiful and terrible all at once. She stumbled over a hidden rock beneath the snow and fell hard, her palms scraping against ice and stone. A sob escaped her throat, raw and painful, but she forced herself back up. She had come too far to stop now. Olivia had no destination in mind beyond away. Away from Marcus and his fists. Away from the isolation of that ranch where no one could hear her cries. Away from the woman she had become, always walking on eggshells, always apologizing for breathing. Her parents were dead, her brother had moved to California years ago, and she had nowhere to go except forward, one agonizing step at a time. The sun rose higher, and with it came a wind that cut through her like knives. Her feet had stopped hurting an hour ago, which terrified her more than the pain had. She knew what that meant, had heard stories of frostbite and gangrene. But still she walked, because going back meant death, if not of her body then certainly of whatever remained of her soul. She crested a small ridge and saw below her a thin trail of smoke rising from somewhere beyond a copse of bare aspens. Civilization, or at least human habitation. Hope flared in her chest, dangerous and bright. She half walked, half slid down the slope, her frozen feet unable to find proper purchase. The trees seemed to reach toward her with skeletal branches, and she pushed through them with the last reserves of her strength. When she emerged from the grove, she found herself looking at a small cabin, sturdy and well-built, with a lean-to stable beside it. 3 horses stood inside, their breath steaming in the cold morning air. Smoke rose from the stone chimney in a steady stream. Olivia tried to call out, but her voice emerged as barely a whisper. She took another step toward the cabin and felt her legs give out beneath her. The door opened just as she hit the ground, and through her dimming vision she saw a tall figure rushing toward her. Strong arms lifted her and she felt herself being carried. A deep voice, rough with concern, said something she could not quite understand. Then there was warmth, blessed warmth, and the world went dark. When consciousness returned, it came slowly, like surfacing from deep water. Olivia became aware of several things at once. She was lying on something soft, wrapped in heavy blankets that smelled of wood smoke and sage. A fire crackled nearby, filling the room with warmth and flickering light. Her feet burned with the fierce pain of returning circulation, which she knew was a good sign even as tears leaked from her closed eyes. Easy now. The voice was male, deep and gentle. You are safe here. Olivia forced her eyes open and found herself looking up at a man who knelt beside the bed where she lay. He appeared to be in his late 20s, with strong, weathered features that spoke of a life lived outdoors. His eyes were a striking gray-blue, like storm clouds over the mountains, and his dark hair was slightly too long, curling against the collar of his wool shirt. He held a cup of something that steamed gently. "Can you sit up?" he asked. "You need to drink this. It is warm broth." She nodded and tried to push herself upright, her muscles protesting. He slipped an arm behind her shoulders to help, his touch careful and respectful. When she was settled against the pillows he had piled behind her, he handed her the cup. Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped it, and he wrapped his larger hands around hers to steady them. "Small sips," he instructed. "Your body has been through an ordeal." The broth was rich and salty, warming her from the inside. She drank slowly, aware of his watchful gaze. When she had finished half the cup, she finally found her voice. "Thank you," she whispered. "I thought I was going to die out there." "You very nearly did." His expression was serious. "I have tended to your feet as best I can. The damage is not as bad as it could have been, but you will need to stay off them for several days at least. What in God's name were you doing out there in the snow with no shoes?" The concern in his voice, so different from any tone Marcus had used with her in years, made her eyes well with tears again. She looked away, ashamed. "I had to leave. I did not have time to find shoes." She saw understanding dawn in his eyes, followed by a flash of anger that was not directed at her. "Your husband," Olivia nodded, unable to meet his gaze. "Marcus Owens. We have a ranch about 15 miles northwest of here near Leadville. I know the area." He was quiet for a moment. "My name is Russell Garrett. This is my winter cabin. I run cattle in the warmer months, but I spend winters here, trapping and living quiet. You are welcome to stay as long as you need." "I cannot impose on you like that," Olivia said, though the thought of leaving this warm, safe place made her want to weep. "I should find somewhere else to go." Russell shook his head firmly. "With respect, madam, you are in no condition to go anywhere. Your feet need time to heal, and even if they did not, there is a storm coming. I can smell it in the air. You would not make it a mile before it hit." As if to underscore his words, wind rattled the shutters. Olivia bit her lip, torn between pride and practicality. Practicality won. She had nothing, was nothing right now except a woman desperately grateful to be alive. "Just for a few days then," she said softly. "Until the storm passes and I can figure out where to go, I will try not to be a burden." "You are not a burden." Russell stood, his tall frame unfolding with an easy grace. "You are a human being who needed help, and I am glad I was here to provide it. Now you should rest more. Your body needs time to recover from the cold and exhaustion." Olivia wanted to protest, but weariness washed over her in waves. She let him take the empty cup from her hands and settled back against the pillows. As her eyes drifted closed, she heard him moving around the cabin, the gentle sounds of domesticity. For the first time in 3 years, she felt safe enough to truly sleep. When she woke again, gray afternoon light filtered through the cabin's single window. Snow fell in thick sheets outside, confirming Russell's prediction about the storm. Olivia pushed herself up carefully, testing her feet. They were bandaged in clean cloth and hurt less than before, though they were still tender and swollen. Russell sat at a rough-hewn table near the window, oiling what looked like a saddle. He glanced up when he heard her moving and set aside his work. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Better," Olivia said, and it was true. The terrible bone-deep cold was gone, replaced by the normal aches of exhausted muscles and injured feet. "I did not mean to sleep so long. Your body needed it." Russell crossed to the stove and ladled something from a pot that hung over the fire. "You should eat. Proper food this time, not just broth." He brought her a bowl of stew thick with meat and vegetables, and Olivia realized she was ravenous. She could not remember the last time she had eaten a full meal. Marcus had controlled even that, doling out food as reward or withholding it as punishment. Russell returned to his work at the table while she ate, giving her privacy without leaving her alone. Olivia studied him covertly as she spooned up the stew. He moved with the efficient economy of someone accustomed to caring for himself, every motion purposeful. There was a quietness to him that she found soothing after Marcus's volatile moods. "This is very good," she said after a while. "You are a fine cook." "Living alone, you learn," Russell replied. "Otherwise you eat poorly, and that is a miserable way to spend a winter." "How long have you been out here by yourself?" "3 years now. I worked for a big ranching outfit for a while after I came west from Missouri, saved my money, and bought some land and cattle of my own. It is not much yet, but it is mine." Olivia heard the pride in his voice and felt a pang of envy. To own something that was truly yours, to work for yourself and answer to no one, what must that freedom feel like? "Do you not get lonely?" she asked. Russell considered the question. "Sometimes. But I prefer my own company to bad company, and I have learned that solitude and loneliness are not the same thing. Besides, I go into town every few weeks for supplies and conversation. I am not a complete hermit." "Which town?" "Jerome Junction, Arizona, usually. It is a 2-day ride south from here, but it is a decent place. Not as wild as some of the mining camps, but not so settled that a man feels suffocated." He paused. "When you are well enough to travel, I could take you there if you wish. You might find work, make a new start." "Arizona." The word hung in the air between them, full of possibility. Olivia had never been further south than Colorado Springs. The idea of going somewhere entirely new, where no one knew her or Marcus, where she could become someone other than the broken woman she had been, made her heart beat faster. "Would there truly be work for someone like me?" she asked. "I have no skills beyond keeping house and basic sums. Jerome Junction has a hotel, a restaurant, a general store, and a dozen other establishments. Someone will need help." Russell met her eyes. "And for what it is worth, leaving the way you did took more courage than most people ever have to summon. You are stronger than you think." Tears stung Olivia's eyes again. She was so tired of crying, but kindness undid her in ways that cruelty never had. "Thank you," she whispered. The storm raged for 3 days, trapping them in the cabin together. At first, Olivia worried about propriety, about what it meant for an unmarried woman to be alone with an unmarried man. But Russell was unfailingly respectful, sleeping in a bedroll near the fire while she took the cabin's only bed, never touching her except when necessary to check her bandages or help her to the chair by the fire. They fell into an easy routine. Russell would rise before dawn to tend the horses and check his trap lines near the cabin. Olivia would wake to find the fire already stoked high and fresh water heating on the stove. Despite his insistence that she rest, she insisted on making herself useful in small ways, preparing meals and tidying the cabin as much as her injured feet allowed. They talked during those long, snowbound days, carefully at first and then with increasing openness. Russell told her about growing up on a farm in Missouri, the youngest of 4 brothers. His father had died when he was 16, and his mother had remarried a man who made it clear that her grown sons were no longer welcome under his roof. Russell had headed west with nothing but a horse and his father's rifle, determined to make something of himself. "I worked at anything I could find," he said one evening as they sat by the fire. "Drove freight wagons, hired on as a ranch hand, even spent a winter logging in the mountains. The work was hard but honest, and every dollar I saved brought me closer to having my own place." "And now you have it," Olivia said. "You should be proud." "I am," Russell admitted, "though there are times I wonder what it would be like to share it with someone. To have a partner in building something lasting." Olivia heard the loneliness beneath his words and understood it. She had been surrounded by another person every day for 3 years and had never felt more alone. True companionship, she was learning, was not about proximity but about genuine care and respect. Her own story came out in pieces, painful and halting. She told him about growing up in Denver, the daughter of a bank clerk. Her mother had died when she was 14, and her father had followed 6 years later, his heart giving out one ordinary Tuesday morning. Olivia had been 20, suddenly alone except for her brother, and Marcus had seemed like salvation when he came courting. He was charming at first, she said quietly. Attentive and generous, he had a ranch and plans to expand it to become one of the most successful cattlemen in Colorado. I thought I was lucky that he had chosen me. When did it change? Russell asked gently. The wedding night. Olivia stared into the fire, remembering. He got angry because I was nervous, called me frigid and useless. I thought it was just wedding nerves for both of us, that things would get better, but they only got worse. He isolated me on the ranch, drove away anyone who might have been a friend. He controlled everything I did, everything I wore, everything I ate, and when I did not meet his impossible standards, he made sure I knew it. She touched her ribs unconsciously, remembering the last beating. Marcus had been angry because supper was not ready when he wanted it, never mind that he had come home 2 hours earlier than usual. His fists had found their familiar targets, places that could be hidden by clothing. He had learned to be careful about leaving marks where others might see. I am sorry, Russell said, and the genuine emotion in his voice made her look at him. No one deserves to be treated that way, ever. I should have left sooner, Olivia whispered. I was just so afraid. He always said he would find me if I ran, that I belonged to him, that he would kill me before he let me go. He does not own you, Russell said firmly. No one owns another person. You are your own woman, Olivia, and you have every right to choose your own path. It was the first time he had used her given name, and something in the way he said it, with such respect and certainty, made her feel like a person again rather than a possession. On the 4th day, the storm broke. Olivia woke to brilliant sunshine reflecting off snow so white it hurt her eyes. Russell had already been up for hours, she could tell. The cabin was warm and breakfast was waiting. I need to check the livestock in the lower pasture, he said as she ate. There is a line cabin down there and I want to make sure it weathered the storm. I will be gone most of the day. Olivia nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. She had grown accustomed to his presence, to the comfort of his quiet strength. Be careful. I will. There is stew on the stove and plenty of firewood stacked by the door. Do not try to do too much. Your feet still need rest. After he left, the cabin felt emptier than it should have. Olivia moved carefully to the window and watched him ride south on a sturdy bay gelding, his rifle in its scabbard and his shoulders set against the cold. She wondered what it said about her that she felt safer with a stranger than she ever had with her own husband. She spent the day resting and thinking. Her feet were healing well, the swelling going down and the color returning to normal. In another week, she would be able to walk properly again. And then what? She could not stay here indefinitely, no matter how much the idea appealed to her. Russell had his own life and she needed to build one for herself. Arizona kept circling back through her thoughts. A new place, a fresh start. No one there would know her as Marcus Owens's wife. She could be just Olivia, a woman making her own way. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Russell returned as the sun was setting, his face ruddy from cold and exertion. Everything is secure, he reported. Lost a few fence posts, but nothing that cannot be mended come spring. They ate dinner together, and Olivia noticed that Russell seemed distracted, working up to saying something. Finally, he set down his fork and looked at her directly. I rode past your husband's ranch on the way back, he said. There were men there and they were asking questions in the nearest town. Marcus is looking for you. Olivia's blood ran cold. Did they see you? Did anyone tell them about you? No one knows you are here except you and me, but Olivia, he is not giving up the search. From what I heard, he is telling people you are unwell, that you wandered off in confusion, and he is desperate to find you before you come to harm." "Of course he is," Olivia said bitterly. "He cannot let anyone know the truth. It would ruin his reputation." Russell leaned forward, his expression serious. "I think you should leave sooner rather than later, as soon as you can travel safely. The longer you stay in this area, the greater the chance he will find you." Fear and gratitude warred in Olivia's chest. "You want me gone?" "No," Russell said firmly. "I want you safe. There is a difference. If I thought Marcus would give up and let you go, I would tell you to stay as long as you needed. But men like him do not let go easily. You need to be somewhere he cannot find you." "Arizona," Olivia said. "Yes. I was planning to head down there soon anyway to check on my summer range. I can take you, make sure you get settled safely." "That would delay your plans, take you away from your work here." Russell shrugged. "I am my own boss. I can adjust my schedule. And honestly, Olivia, I would not be able to live with myself if I sent you off alone and something happened to you." The simple decency of the offer made Olivia's throat tight. "I do not know how to thank you." "You do not need to thank me. You just need to get well enough to travel." "How do your feet feel today?" "Much better. I walked to the window and back several times without too much pain." "Good. I will fashion you a pair of boots before we leave. I have some leather that should work, and you cannot travel the distance we need to cover in bare feet or thin house slippers." Over the next week, Olivia watched Russell craft boots for her with the same quiet competence he brought to everything else. He traced her feet carefully, cut and shaped the leather, and stitched it all together with neat, even seams. The finished boots were simple but sturdy, lined with soft rabbit fur he had trapped himself. When he presented them to her, Olivia turned them over in her hands, marveling. "These are beautiful. I have never owned anything so fine." "They are practical," Russell said, but she could see he was pleased. "Try them on." Olivia slipped her healing feet into the boots, and they fit perfectly, snug without being tight. She stood and took a few experimental steps. The support felt wonderful after days of painful shuffling. "They are perfect," she said. "Russell, I cannot possibly repay you for all you have done for me." He met her eyes, and something in his expression made her breath catch. "I am not keeping a tally, Olivia. I helped you because it was the right thing to do and because I wanted to." "Why?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. "Why have you been so kind to me? You do not even know me." Russell was quiet for a long moment. "I know enough," he said finally. "I know you are brave enough to walk through snow in bare feet to escape a bad situation. I know you are kind and thoughtful, even when you are hurting. I know you make the best biscuits I have ever tasted, and that you have a good sense of humor hidden under all that fear. That is enough for me to want to help you." Olivia felt heat rise in her cheeks. Over the past week, she had found herself noticing things about Russell that had nothing to do with gratitude. The way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. The gentleness of his hands when he changed her bandages. The rumble of his laugh when she said something amusing. She had thought herself dead inside, incapable of feeling anything warm or tender after years with Marcus, but apparently she had been wrong. "I do not know what I am going to do in Arizona," she admitted. "I am frightened." "That is understandable. Change is frightening, even when it is for the better. But Olivia, you have already done the hardest part. You left. Everything else is just details." They departed 2 days later, early in the morning when the air was crisp and clear. Russell had packed supplies carefully, loading his horses with efficiency. He gave Olivia the bay gelding to ride, a steady horse with an easy gait, while he rode a long-legged sorrel mare. A pack horse followed behind, laden with everything they would need for the journey south. Before they left, Russell turned to Olivia in front of the cabin. She was dressed in clothes he had scrounged from his own supply, men's trousers and a wool shirt that were too large but far warmer than her thin dress. The boots he had made her completed the outfit. "Are you ready?" he asked. Olivia looked back at the cabin that had been her sanctuary, then ahead toward the trail that would lead her to a new life. "I think so." Russell reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small revolver. "Do you know how to use one of these?" Olivia shook her head, eyeing the weapon nervously. "I am going to teach you. A woman traveling in the territories needs to know how to protect herself." He showed her how to hold it, how to aim, how to squeeze the trigger rather than pulling it. They spent an hour practicing on a tree trunk until she could hit it more often than not. "It is not just for protection from animals or outlaws," Russell said quietly as he helped her tuck the revolver into the belt he had given her. "If Marcus somehow finds us on the trail, I need to know you can defend yourself." The thought made Olivia's stomach clench, but she nodded. She was done being helpless. They rode south through country that grew less snow-covered with each passing mile. Colorado gave way to New Mexico territory, the landscape changing from pine forests and high peaks to juniper-dotted hills and red rock formations. They traveled steadily but not frantically, stopping to rest the horses and make camp each night. Russell was careful with her reputation, making sure they camped in places where they could not be easily seen together, sleeping on opposite sides of the fire. But during the long days in the saddle, they talked about everything and nothing. Russell told her about his dreams of expanding his ranch, of breeding horses as well as cattle. Olivia found herself sharing hopes she had not even known she still possessed, about maybe opening a boarding house someday, being her own boss and helping other women who needed a safe place to land. "You would be good at that," Russell said. "You have a way of making a place feel like home." They had been traveling for 5 days when they stopped in a small settlement to resupply. Russell went into the general store while Olivia waited with the horses, her hat pulled low. She was watching a group of children playing in the street when she heard a voice that made her blood freeze. "I am looking for my wife. She has been ill and wandered away from our ranch. I am very worried about her. Marcus." Olivia shrank back against the building, her heart hammering. Through the store's window, she could see him talking to the shopkeeper, his face arranged in an expression of concern that she knew was utterly false. He looked exactly as she remembered, tall and solid, with dark hair and features that most women would call handsome. Olivia only saw the cruelty in the set of his mouth, the coldness in his eyes. Russell emerged from the store at that moment and took in the situation with one quick glance. He caught Olivia's eye and gave the smallest shake of his head, a signal to stay quiet and still. Then he walked past Marcus as if he were a stranger, loading his purchases onto the pack horse with unhurried movements. "Excuse me," Marcus said, turning to Russell. "Have you seen a woman traveling alone? Dark hair, about 5.5 feet tall, probably looking confused or lost." Russell barely glanced at him. "No women traveling alone out here. Too dangerous. If I saw someone like that, I would have stopped to help. Of course." Marcus's smile did not reach his eyes. "If you do see her, there is a reward for information leading to her safe return. She is very dear to me." "I will keep that in mind," Russell said evenly. Marcus studied him for a long moment, and Olivia held her breath. But finally, her husband nodded and turned away, mounting the expensive stallion he had always babied more than he had ever cared for her. Russell waited until Marcus had ridden out of sight before crossing to where Olivia stood. "We need to go," he said quietly. "Now." They rode hard for the rest of the day, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and the settlement. When they finally made camp that night, Olivia was shaking so badly she could barely dismount. "He was right there," she whispered. "If he had looked at me, really looked, he would have known." "But he did not," Russell said firmly. He built the fire and got water boiling for coffee, his movements calm and sure. "Olivia, look at me." She met his eyes, seeing the determination there. "You are not going back to him. I will not let that happen. Do you understand me? Whatever it takes, however long it takes, I will make sure you get somewhere safe." "Why?" Olivia asked again, the same question she had asked in the cabin. "Why do you care so much?" Russell was quiet for a long moment, the firelight playing across his face. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "Because in the short time I have known you, I have come to care about what happens to you. Because you deserve better than what you have had. Because when I look at you, I see someone strong and kind and beautiful, and I cannot stand the thought of you being hurt again." Olivia's breath caught. "Russell, I know it is too soon," he said quickly. "I know you have just escaped one marriage, and the last thing you need is another man complicating your life. I am not asking you for anything, Olivia. I am just telling you the truth. I care about you, and I want to see you safe and happy, even if that happiness does not include me." Olivia crossed the space between them, her new boots crunching on the dry earth. She took his face in her hands, feeling the rough stubble of his jaw, the warmth of his skin. "It is not too soon," she said softly. "Or maybe it is, but I do not care. Russell, you have shown me more kindness and respect in 2 weeks than Marcus did in 3 years. You make me feel human again, like I matter." "You do matter," Russell said fiercely. "You matter so damned much." He kissed her then, or maybe she kissed him. It did not matter who moved first. What mattered was the gentleness of it, the way he cradled her face like she was something precious, the way he pulled back to look at her with such tender concern. "Is this all right?" he asked. "I do not want to rush you or make you feel pressured." "It is more than all right," Olivia said. "It is perfect." They held each other by the fire as the stars wheeled overhead, talking quietly about the future. Russell told her that if she wanted to go to Jerome Junction and start her own life, he would help her get settled and then step back, let her find her own path. But if she wanted, if she was willing to take a chance on a cowboy with more dreams than money, he would court her properly. Give her time to heal, time to be sure of her own heart. "I would like that," Olivia said. "The courting, though I feel like we have already skipped several steps." "Then we will go back and do them right," Russell said with a smile. "I will take you to dinner in Jerome Junction, bring you flowers, bore you with talk about cattle breeding." "I cannot imagine you boring me with anything," Olivia said, and meant it. They reached Arizona territory 3 days later, crossing into land that was so different from Colorado it might have been another world. The air was dry and scented with sage and creosote. Red rocks jutted toward a sky so blue it seemed impossible. Despite the winter season, the temperature was mild, and Olivia shed her heavy coat for the first time in weeks. Jerome Junction sprawled across a hillside, a town built on copper mining and cattle ranching. The main street was lined with wood frame buildings, some painted in bright colors that seemed bold and cheerful. People moved along the boardwalks going about their business, a mix of miners, ranchers, merchants, and families. Russell led them to a modest hotel on the edge of town. "I know the owner," he explained. "She is a good woman who came out here to start over herself. I think you two will get along." The hotel was run by a woman named Sarah Chen, whose Chinese father and Irish mother had given her striking features and an equally striking no-nonsense attitude. She took one look at Olivia and seemed to understand the situation without needing explanation. "I have a room for you, dear," she said kindly. "And as it happens, I could use some help around here. My last girl ran off to get married, and I am drowning in laundry and meal preparation. If you are interested in working for room, board, and a small wage, the job is yours." Olivia looked at Russell, who nodded encouragingly. "I would like that very much," she said. Russell paid for a month's stay in advance over Olivia's protests. "Consider it a loan," he said. "You can pay me back when you are on your feet." He stayed in Jerome Junction for a week, helping Olivia settle in and making sure she felt safe. True to his word, he courted her properly, taking her to dinner at the town's best restaurant, walking with her along the hillside paths in the evening, always respectful, always attentive. Olivia felt herself blooming under his care, becoming someone she barely recognized. She laughed more. She stood straighter. She started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have a life worth living. On the night before Russell was scheduled to head back north to tend to his ranch, they sat on the hotel's porch watching the sunset paint the desert in shades of orange and gold. "I will come back in a month," Russell said. "I need to handle some business with my cattle and make sure everything is set for spring, but then I will be back if you want me to come." "I want you to come," Olivia said. "Russell, this past week has been wonderful. You have been wonderful." "I am just being myself," he said with a slight smile, which is apparently a refreshing change. "It is more than that." Olivia took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "You see me. The real me, not the person Marcus tried to make me into. You listen when I talk. You care about what I think and feel. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" "It should not be rare," Russell said. "It should be the bare minimum of how people treat each other." "Well, it is not, at least not in my experience." Olivia turned to face him fully. "I know we have not known each other long. I know I am still technically married, even though I never want to see Marcus again. But Russell, I am falling in love with you. I think I have been since the moment you carried me into your cabin." Russell's eyes softened. He cupped her cheek with his calloused hand. "I am already in love with you, Olivia. I tried to fight it, told myself it was too fast, too complicated. But the heart does not care about timing or complications. It just knows what it wants." They kissed on the porch as the sun dipped below the horizon, and Olivia felt something inside her shift and settle. This was what love was supposed to feel like. Safe and exciting all at once. A partnership, not a prison. Russell left the next morning, but not before stopping by the sheriff's office. Olivia went with him, her stomach churning with anxiety. The sheriff, a grizzled man named Tom Hawkins who looked like he had seen everything twice, listened to her story with a grave expression. "Marcus Owens, you said," he pulled out a file. "I know that name. Got a wire from the Colorado Marshal about a month back asking if we had seen you. Your husband filed a missing person report." "I am not missing," Olivia said firmly. "I left by choice. He was violent toward me, and I feared for my life." Sheriff Hawkins studied her for a long moment. "Arizona territory does not recognize Colorado marriages as binding unless they are registered here. And even if yours was, we have laws now against a man beating his wife. You want to file a complaint, I can send word north." Olivia thought about it. The idea of Marcus being held accountable was appealing, but she also knew how these things worked. A man's word against his wife's, and who would believe her? Besides, she did not want to give him any excuse to come to Arizona looking for her. "I just want to be left alone," she said finally. "I want him to think I am dead or gone forever. I do not want him to find me." "Then, as far as I am concerned, I never saw you," Sheriff Hawkins said. "But Miss Olivia, if he does show up here, you come tell me immediately. I do not hold with men who hurt women, and I will make sure he understands that if he sets foot in my town." With that assurance, Olivia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She said goodbye to Russell with promises to write often and be safe. Then she threw herself into her new life with determination. Working at the hotel was hard but satisfying. Sarah Chen was a fair boss who expected diligent work, but also showed genuine care for Olivia's well-being. The other staff, a mix of women and men of various backgrounds, welcomed her without prying into her past. Jerome Junction, Olivia discovered, was full of people who had come west to reinvent themselves, and no one asked too many questions. She wrote to Russell every week, long letters about her days and the small joys she was discovering. He wrote back faithfully, his letters full of news about his ranch and cattle, but also sweet words that made her blush when she read them in the privacy of her small room. True to his word, Russell returned a month later. Olivia saw him ride into town from the hotel window and had to restrain herself from running out to meet him like an eager girl. But when he walked through the hotel doors, his face lighting up at the sight of her, she could not help the smile that spread across her face. "Hello, stranger," she said. "Hello yourself," Russell replied. "You look wonderful. Arizona clearly agrees with you." It was true. The desert sun had brought color to Olivia's cheeks, and regular meals had filled out her too thin frame. More than that, she carried herself differently now, with a confidence that had been beaten out of her in Colorado. Russell stayed for 2 weeks that time, and they fell into a comfortable pattern. He would handle ranch business during the day, meeting with other cattlemen and checking on his herd in the southern ranges. In the evenings, he and Olivia would take long walks, have dinner together, and talk about everything under the sun. He met her friends, charmed Sarah Chen with his quiet manners, and fit himself into her new life as if he had always been part of it. On his last night in town, Russell took Olivia to a dance at the community hall. She had not danced in years, Marcus had considered it frivolous, and she was nervous about remembering the steps. But Russell was a patient partner, guiding her through waltzes and reels with gentle encouragement. "You are a natural," he said as they spun across the floor. "I have a good teacher," Olivia replied. As the evening wore on and the musicians shifted to slower songs, Russell pulled Olivia close and spoke quietly into her ear. "I have been thinking about something." "What is that?" "My ranch. It does well enough, but it is lonely up there by myself. I keep thinking how different it would be with someone to share it with, someone to build a real home with." Olivia pulled back to look at him. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that I know it has not been long enough. I know you need more time. But Olivia, I want you to know that when you are ready, if you are ever ready, I would be honored to make you my wife. The real kind of marriage built on respect and partnership and love." Tears stung Olivia's eyes, but they were happy tears this time. "I need to get a divorce first. I do not even know how to start that process." "I have already looked into it," Russell said. "Arizona territory has its own divorce laws. You can file here on grounds of cruelty and abandonment. It takes time, usually about 6 months if Marcus does not contest it. And if he does contest it, you have a sheriff who will testify on your behalf about your condition when you arrived in your statement." "You have been busy," Olivia said, touched that he had gone to such lengths. "I wanted to know what our options were, but Olivia, there is no pressure. Even if you decide you do not want to marry me, or if you want to wait years, I will understand. I just needed you to know that my intentions are serious." Olivia stood on her toes and kissed him, right there in the middle of the dance floor with half the town watching. Let them see. Let them know she had found a good man, a man who treated her the way she deserved to be treated. "I want to marry you, Russell Garrett," she said when she pulled away. "Maybe not tomorrow, but soon as I am legally free to do so." Russell's smile could have lit the whole room. He swept her into another dance, and Olivia laughed with pure joy. True to Russell's research, the divorce process was straightforward if not quick. Olivia filed the necessary papers with the help of a local lawyer Sarah Chen recommended. The legal notice was published in newspapers, including in Colorado, notifying Marcus of the proceedings and giving him a chance to respond. Olivia spent anxious weeks waiting to see if he would contest it, if he would show up in Arizona to drag her back. But the deadline came and went with no response. Marcus's silence was telling. He either did not care enough to fight for a wife he had treated so poorly, or he was too proud to air their private troubles in public court. Either way, Olivia was grateful. 6 months after filing, on a warm day in July of 1882, Olivia received the official decree. She was divorced, no longer tied to Marcus Owens in any legal way. She stared at the paper for a long time, feeling a mix of emotions. Relief, certainly. Sadness for the young woman she had been who had thought marriage to Marcus would be her salvation. And hope, bright and shining, for the future that now stretched before her. Russell had been staying in Jerome Junction for the past month, waiting for the decree. When Olivia showed him the paper, he picked her up and spun her around, whooping with joy. "Marry me," he said when he set her down. "Right now, today. Marry me, Olivia." "Today," Olivia laughed. "Russell, I do not have a dress or flowers or anything prepared. I do not care about any of that. I just want you to be my wife. We can have a big celebration later if you want. Invite everyone we know. But right now, I just want to stand up in front of a preacher and promise to love you for the rest of my life." Olivia looked into his earnest, hopeful face and felt her heart swell. "Yes," she said. "Yes, let us get married today." They were wed that afternoon in the small church at the edge of town, with Sarah Chen and Sheriff Hawkins as witnesses. Olivia wore the nicest dress she owned, a simple blue cotton that Sarah had helped her make. Russell wore his best shirt and a string tie, his hair neatly combed. The ceremony was brief but heartfelt, and when the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Olivia felt like she could finally breathe fully for the first time in years. That night, in the small house Russell had rented on the outskirts of Jerome Junction, they came together as husband and wife. Russell was patient and gentle, taking his time to make sure Olivia was comfortable, that she felt safe and cherished. It was nothing like her experiences with Marcus, which had been perfunctory at best and painful at worst. This was tender and sweet, an expression of love rather than a claiming of property. Afterward, as they lay tangled together in the darkness, Olivia traced patterns on Russell's chest and marveled at how much her life had changed in less than a year. "What are you thinking?" Russell asked, his voice sleep rough. "That I walked through snow in bare feet and found heaven on the other side," Olivia said. "That sounds dramatic, I know." "It sounds true," Russell replied. He kissed the top of her head. "You were so brave, Olivia. I do not know if I have ever told you how much I admire that." "I did not feel brave. I felt terrified. Being brave does not mean you are not scared. It means you do what needs to be done even when you are terrified. You did that." They fell asleep in each other's arms, and Olivia dreamed of snow and running, and a pair of boots that had saved her life in more ways than one. They spent the first months of their marriage in Arizona, with Russell managing his herd from the southern range while Olivia continued working at the hotel. Sarah had been thrilled at the wedding and insisted that Olivia keep her job for as long as she wanted it. "You have become like a daughter to me," Sarah said. "Besides, you are too good at this work to lose just because you got married." But as autumn approached, Russell grew restless. "I need to check on the northern property," he told Olivia one evening. "Make sure the winter cabin is ready and see how the herd there is doing. I have neglected it too long." "I will come with you," Olivia said immediately. Russell hesitated. "It is near where Marcus lived. Are you sure you want to go back there?" Olivia thought about it. The idea of being anywhere near her old life made her stomach clench with anxiety, but she was not the same woman who had fled through the snow. She was stronger now, surer of herself, and she would be with Russell, not alone. "I am sure," she said. "We are married now. Legally, there is nothing Marcus can do. And besides, you said the cabin is 15 miles from his ranch. We might never even see him." They made the journey north as the aspens turned gold and the air gained a crisp edge. Olivia rode her own horse now, a gentle mare Russell had bought her as a wedding gift. She was a competent rider, having learned over months of practice in Arizona. The woman who had stumbled through the snow in bare feet felt like someone from another lifetime. When they reached the cabin, Olivia stood in front of it and felt emotion well up in her throat. This was where her new life had truly begun, where Russell had given her boots and told her in his own way to run no more, to stop fleeing and start living. "Are you all right?" Russell asked, coming to stand beside her. "More than all right," Olivia said. "I was just remembering that morning when I collapsed in the snow right there. I thought I was going to die, and instead I found you." Russell pulled her close. "I found you too. Best morning of my life, even if it was terrifying at the time." They spent 2 weeks at the cabin, falling into the same comfortable rhythms they had established during Olivia's recovery. But this time, everything was different. This time, she was not a frightened refugee but a wife and partner. She helped Russell mend fence lines and check on cattle. She cooked meals and kept the cabin tidy, but as her own choice, not from fear or obligation. In the evenings, they would sit by the fire and read to each other from the books they had brought, or simply talk about their plans for the future. On the third day, Russell came back from checking his trap lines with a troubled expression. "I ran into someone in town," he said. "There has been news about Marcus." Olivia's heart clenched. "What kind of news?" "He remarried a few months ago, a young woman from Denver. There are already rumors that she looks frightened all the time, that people hear shouting from the ranch house." Olivia closed her eyes, feeling sick. Another woman was living her nightmare, trapped the way she had been trapped. "We have to do something." "What can we do?" "Unless she comes forward with complaints, unless she asks for help, there is nothing anyone can do legally." "I could talk to her, tell her my story, let her know there is a way out." Russell looked doubtful. "Marcus would never let you near her, and Olivia, it could be dangerous." "What if he saw you?" "He cannot hurt me anymore. I am not his wife. I am not his property. I am my own person, and I am your wife, and he has no claim on me." Olivia paced the small cabin, agitated. "But Russell, I cannot just do nothing. I cannot let another woman suffer because I was too afraid to try to help." They argued about it for hours. Russell worried about Olivia's safety, and Olivia determined to at least make an attempt to reach Marcus's new wife. Finally, they reached a compromise. Russell would discreetly inquire in town about the woman's habits, see if there was a way to approach her when Marcus was not around. It took a week of careful observation, but Russell learned that the new Mrs. Owens, a young woman named Catherine, went to town every Wednesday for supplies. Marcus always sent her alone, apparently not worried about her running away the way he had tried to prevent Olivia from having any independence. On the next Wednesday, Olivia waited near the general store, her heart hammering. When Catherine emerged, arms full of parcels, Olivia approached her carefully. "Mrs. Owens, Catherine, may I speak with you for a moment?" Catherine turned, and Olivia's heart broke at what she saw. The young woman could not have been more than 19, with pretty features that were marred by a fading bruise on her cheek and eyes that held the same dead look Olivia remembered from her own reflection. "Do I know you?" Catherine asked nervously, glancing around as if afraid of being seen talking to a stranger. "No, but I know your husband. I was married to him before you." Catherine's eyes widened. "You are the wife who ran away. Marcus said you were insane, that you died somewhere in the wilderness." "As you can see, I am very much alive and perfectly sane. Catherine, I need to tell you something, and I need you to really listen. Marcus is not going to get better. The way he treats you, the things he does, it will only get worse. I know because I lived it for 3 years. Tears welled in Catherine's eyes. "I do not know what you mean. My husband is a good man." "Is that why you have a bruise on your face? Is that why you look terrified right now?" Olivia softened her voice. "I am not here to judge you or pressure you. I just want you to know that if you ever decide you cannot take it anymore, there is a way out. I got out. I am happy now, married to a good man who has never once raised his hand to me. You can have that too." Catherine shook her head, but Olivia could see the longing in her eyes. "I have nowhere to go. My family disowned me for marrying Marcus against their wishes. There are places, people who will help." Olivia pressed a piece of paper into Catherine's hand. "This is the address of a hotel in Jerome Junction, Arizona. The woman who runs it, Sarah Chen, she helped me. If you ever need to run, go there. Tell her I sent you. She will keep you safe until you can figure out what to do next." "I cannot," Catherine whispered, but she clutched the paper. "You can. I did it in the middle of winter with no shoes and no plan. If I could do it, so can you. You just have to be brave enough to take the first step." Olivia left before Catherine could respond, before Marcus might appear and cause a scene. She did not know if her words had made any difference, but at least she had tried. Russell was waiting for her with the horses. "How did it go?" "I do not know. She is so young and so scared. I just hope I planted a seed, gave her something to think about." Olivia mounted her mare, feeling emotionally wrung out. "Can we go home now, back to Arizona?" "Yes," Russell said. "Let us go home." They left Colorado the next day, and Olivia did not look back. Whatever happened with Catherine was in God's hands now. Olivia had done what she could, and she had her own life to live. They arrived back in Jerome Junction in late October, just as the desert was experiencing its brief, beautiful autumn. Olivia had missed Arizona more than she expected, missed the wide open spaces and the kind people who had accepted her without question. Sarah Chen welcomed them back with a huge meal and wanted to hear all about their trip. When Olivia told her about Catherine and what she had done, Sarah nodded approvingly. "You did the right thing. Whether she uses the information or not, at least she knows she has options. Sometimes that knowledge alone can keep a person going." Sarah poured more coffee for everyone. "Now, what are your plans? Will you stay in Jerome Junction or go back to the ranch?" Russell and Olivia had discussed this on the long ride south. "We are going to split our time," Russell said. "Spring and summer on the northern range, fall and winter here. It is a good arrangement for the cattle, moving them with the seasons, and it gives us the best of both territories." "That sounds perfect," Sarah said. Then she grinned. "And it means I get to keep my best worker for half the year." Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Russell's ranch prospered as he proved to be a smart and hard-working cattleman. Olivia discovered she had a head for business and started helping him with the books and planning. Together, they built something lasting, a partnership in every sense of the word. In the spring of 1883, Olivia discovered she was pregnant. The news filled her with joy and terror in equal measure. She had never wanted children with Marcus, had secretly thanked God every month when her courses came, and she knew she was not carrying his child. But a baby with Russell felt like a gift, a new beginning. Russell was beside himself with excitement and nervousness. He fussed over Olivia constantly, trying to keep her from doing any heavy work, until she finally had to tell him to stop treating her like she was made of glass. "Women have been having babies since the dawn of time," she said with amusement. "I am healthy and strong. I will be fine. I just want to make sure you have everything you need, Russell said. I want this to be different from everything you experienced before. It already is, Olivia assured him. I am happy, Russell, truly, deeply happy. That is all the difference in the world. Their son was born in November during their stay in Arizona, delivered by a midwife with Sarah and Russell in attendance. Olivia labored for 18 hours, and there were moments when she thought the pain would break her. But then she heard that first cry, and Russell placed a tiny, perfect baby boy in her arms, and she knew that every moment of pain had been worth it. They named him James, after Russell's father. He had his father's gray-blue eyes and his mother's dark hair, and from the moment he entered the world, he ruled their hearts completely. Watching Russell with their son was a revelation. He was gentle and patient, changing nappies and walking the floor during fussy nights without complaint. He sang to James in a surprisingly good baritone, silly songs that made Olivia laugh. He was everything a father should be, and Olivia fell in love with him all over again, seeing him in this new role. When James was 3 months old, Olivia received a letter that had been forwarded through several addresses before finding her. It was from Catherine. Dear Olivia, it read in shaky handwriting. I do not know if this letter will reach you, but I had to try. I wanted you to know that I took your advice. 3 months ago, I left Marcus. It was the hardest thing I have ever done, but I remembered what you said about being brave enough to take the first step. I went to Jerome Junction and found Mrs. Chen, and she was exactly as kind as you promised. She helped me get a divorce and find work. I am making a new life for myself, and I wanted you to know that it is because of your courage. You saved my life by sharing your story. Thank you will never be enough, but thank you. I hope you are well and happy. You deserve all the happiness in the world. With gratitude and affection, Catherine. Olivia showed the letter to Russell through tears. She did it. She got out. Of course she did, Russell said, putting his arm around her. She had a good teacher. Years passed, each one bringing new joys and challenges. James grew into a curious, energetic boy who loved horses and the outdoors. When he was 3, Olivia gave birth to a daughter they named Rose, who had Russell's smile and a stubborn streak that reminded everyone of her mother. 2 years after that came another son, Thomas, quieter and more thoughtful than his siblings. The ranch continued to prosper. Russell's reputation as a fair dealer and quality cattleman spread, and he was able to expand his holdings. Olivia managed the financial side of the business with skill, and together they became a formidable team. They kept the cabin in Colorado and the house in Arizona, moving between them with the seasons. The children grew up knowing both landscapes, equally at home in the pine forests and the desert. Olivia never forgot where she had come from, but she also never let it define where she was going. In the summer of 1890, Sarah Chen passed away peacefully in her sleep. She left the hotel to Olivia in her will, a gesture that moved Olivia to tears. You were the daughter of my heart, Sarah's letter explained. The hotel gave me purpose and community. I hope it does the same for you. Olivia decided to keep the hotel running, hiring a manager to handle day-to-day operations while she provided oversight and vision. She turned part of it into a refuge for women in bad situations, providing them with safe housing and job training. It was her way of honoring Sarah's memory and paying forward the help she had received. One afternoon in the fall of 1895, Olivia and Russell sat on the porch of their Arizona home, watching their children play in the yard. James was 13 now, tall and gangly, helping his younger siblings build something elaborate with sticks and stones. Rose, at 10, directed the operation with the confidence of a general. Thomas, at 8, contributed quiet suggestions that his siblings often ignored. "You ever think about that morning?" Russell asked. "When you came stumbling out of the snow sometimes," Olivia admitted. "It feels like a lifetime ago, like it happened to someone else. In a way, it did. You are not the same person you were then." Olivia leaned her head on Russell's shoulder. "No, I am not. That woman was broken and terrified. I am neither of those things anymore." "You were never broken," Russell said firmly. "Hurt, yes, scared, definitely, but never broken. Broken things cannot put themselves back together the way you did." "I had help," Olivia reminded him. "I had you." Russell kissed the top of her head. "We helped each other." "That is what marriage should be. Partnership, support, love." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the desert sky turn pink and orange with sunset. Olivia thought about the girl she had been, the one who had thought love meant submission and marriage meant giving up herself. She was grateful that girl had been brave enough to walk through snow in bare feet, to risk everything for a chance at something better. "What are you smiling about?" Russell asked. "I am thinking about boots," Olivia said. Russell laughed, understanding immediately. "The boots I made you." "The boots you made me and what they represented. You gave me the means to run, but more importantly, you gave me a reason to stop running. You showed me what it meant to be valued and respected. You gave me a home, not just a house." "You gave me those things too," Russell said. "Before you, I was just existing, going through the motions of building a life but never really living it. You made everything brighter, more meaningful." The children called for them to come see their creation, and Russell and Olivia rose to join them. As they walked across the yard, hand in hand, Olivia felt a deep sense of gratitude for the twists of fate that had brought her to this moment. The years continued to unfold with their mix of ordinary days and extraordinary moments. James grew into a young man with his father's steady temperament and his mother's sharp mind. He decided to study law, determined to help people who found themselves in situations like his mother had faced. Rose became a teacher, fierce in her defense of her students and brilliant in her methods. Thomas took to ranching like he was born to it, and Russell began teaching him everything he knew about cattle and horses and the land. In 1903, on a crisp October morning, Olivia and Russell celebrated their 21st wedding anniversary. Their children had arranged a party at the hotel in Jerome Junction, inviting friends from across the territory. Catherine, now happily remarried with children of her own, traveled from California to attend. Other women Olivia had helped over the years came too, each with their own stories of survival and triumph. As Olivia looked around the room at the gathered faces, at the community they had built, and the lives they had touched, she felt overwhelmed with emotion. Russell appeared at her elbow as if sensing she needed him. "Quite a turnout," he said. "I was just thinking about how different my life could have been if I had not found the courage to leave, if you had not been there when I needed you most. But you did leave, and I was there. And look at what we built together." Russell gestured to the room full of people laughing and celebrating. "This is our legacy, Olivia, not just our children, wonderful as they are, but all of this. The lives we have touched, the people we have helped, the example we have set of what a real marriage should look like." They danced that night, just as they had at their wedding and countless times since. Olivia's hair was streaked with gray now, and Russell's face bore the lines of a life well lived. But when they looked at each other, they still saw the people they had fallen in love with all those years ago. As the evening wound down and guests began to depart, James approached his parents with a young woman at his side. "Mother, father, I would like you to meet Elizabeth. We have been courting for several months, and I wanted to introduce her to you properly." Elizabeth was a sweet-faced young woman with intelligent eyes and a warm smile. As Olivia spoke with her, She was pleased to see the way James looked at Elizabeth, with respect and genuine affection. He had learned well the lessons his parents had taught him about how to treat the woman he loved. Later, as Olivia and Russell prepared for bed, Olivia mentioned her observations. "James is serious about Elizabeth. I think we may have a wedding to plan in the not-too-distant future." "She seems like a good match for him," Russell agreed. "Smart, kind, and she does not take any nonsense." "He will need that, like you needed me," Olivia teased. "Exactly like I needed you." Russell pulled her close. 21 years, and I still thank God every day that you stumbled into my life." "I did not stumble. I fell flat on my face in your yard." "Best thing that ever happened to me," Russell said, and kissed her soundly. The next few years brought more changes. James did indeed marry Elizabeth in a lovely ceremony in the spring of 1904. Rose announced her engagement to a fellow teacher, a gentle man who clearly adored her. Thomas took over more of the ranch operations, showing a natural gift for the work that made Russell burst with pride. In the summer of 1906, Olivia became a grandmother for the first time when James and Elizabeth welcomed a daughter. Holding that tiny baby, seeing her son with his own child, Olivia was struck by the beautiful cycle of life. This little girl would grow up in a world where her father knew how to be gentle and loving, where her mother was valued and respected. She would never know what it was like to fear the man who was supposed to protect her. Russell was equally smitten with their granddaughter. "We should spoil her terribly," he said, making faces at the baby who regarded him with solemn eyes. "We absolutely should not," Olivia said, but she was already plotting all the ways they could indulge this precious child. As the years passed, more grandchildren arrived. Rose had twin boys who were a handful from the moment they learned to walk. Thomas married a rancher's daughter and had a son and a daughter in quick succession. The house in Arizona and the cabin in Colorado both rang with children's laughter during holidays and summer visits. Olivia continued her work with the hotel and the refuge for women, though she moved into more of an advisory role as she grew older. She trained younger women to carry on the work, sharing her story and the lessons she had learned. She wanted to ensure that the help would continue long after she was gone. Russell remained active on the ranch well into his 60s, though he finally conceded to letting Thomas handle most of the heavy work. He and Olivia spent their days working side by side, as they always had, managing the business side of things and enjoying their family. On a winter evening in 1912, Olivia and Russell sat in front of the fire in their Arizona home. They were in their late 50s now, with grandchildren who were growing up too fast and great-grandchildren on the way. Outside, a rare snow fell, dusting the desert in white. "It is snowing," Olivia said, watching through the window. Russell came to stand beside her. "Does it bother you? Bring back bad memories?" "No," Olivia said thoughtfully. "I used to hate winter, used to dread the snow because it reminded me of that awful night. But now when I see snow, I think of you. I think of the warmth of your cabin and the boots you made me, and the moment I realized I was going to survive. Snow means hope to me now, not fear." Russell wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on top of her head. "You know what I think about when I see snow?" "What?" "I think about how grateful I am that you were strong enough to walk through it, that you did not give up when it would have been so easy to just lie down and let the cold take you. Your strength brought you to me, and my life has been immeasurably richer for it." They stood there together, watching the snow fall. Two people who had found each other against all odds and built a life that exceeded anything either had dreamed possible. In 1915, Jerome Junction held a ceremony honoring Olivia for her years of service to women in need. The town had grown significantly over the decades, and Olivia's refuge had helped hundreds of women escape bad situations and start new lives. The mayor presented her with a plaque, and speaker after speaker stood up to share how Olivia had changed their lives. Catherine, now in her 50s with grown children and a successful dressmaking business, gave a particularly moving speech about how one conversation in front of a general store had saved her life. "Olivia showed me that strength is not about never falling down," Catherine said. "It is about getting back up, no matter how many times you have been knocked down. She showed me that I deserved better, and she gave me the courage to reach for it." Olivia was moved to tears by the outpouring of love and gratitude. When it was her turn to speak, she had to pause several times to collect herself. "I do not consider myself a hero," she said. "I was just a frightened woman who got lucky enough to find help when I needed it most. My husband Russell gave me the tools I needed to save myself, both literally and figuratively. And Sarah Chen, God rest her soul, gave me a place to land and the support to rebuild my life. All I have done is try to pass that forward, to be for other women what they were for me. We all need help sometimes. There is no shame in asking for it, and there is great honor in giving it." Russell squeezed her hand as she spoke, his eyes shining with pride and love. That night, as they prepared for bed, Olivia looked at herself in the mirror. She was 60 years old now, her hair more silver than dark, her face lined with the years. But her eyes were bright and clear, and when she smiled, she meant it. "What are you thinking about?" Russell asked from where he sat on the edge of the bed. "I am thinking about that girl who walked through the snow. How scared she was. How certain she was that she would never be happy or safe again. I wish I could go back and tell her that everything was going to be all right, better than all right. That she was going to have a life full of love and purpose and joy." "She would not have believed you," Russell said with a smile. "Probably not. She did not think very highly of herself back then." Olivia came to sit beside him. "But she would have been wrong. We have had a good life, have we not?" "The best," Russell agreed. "And we are not done yet. We have many more years together, God willing." They did have more years, blessed years full of the quiet joys that come with a long marriage. They celebrated their 40th anniversary surrounded by children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. They traveled some, seeing parts of the country they had never visited. But mostly, they were content to be together, whether working on the ranch, sitting on the porch watching sunsets, or simply existing in comfortable silence. Russell passed away peacefully in his sleep in the spring of 1925, at the age of 70. Olivia woke that morning to find him gone, and though she had known this day would come eventually, the pain was still sharp and deep. They had 43 years together, and it still was not enough. The funeral was attended by what seemed like half the territory. Russell had been respected and loved by all who knew him, a man whose word was his bond and whose kindness knew no limits. Olivia accepted the condolences with grace, but inside she felt hollow. In the weeks after Russell's death, Olivia moved through her days in a fog. Her children worried about her, taking turns staying with her so she would not be alone. But Olivia found she needed solitude to process her grief, to adjust to a world without Russell in it. One afternoon, she went to the cabin in Colorado, the place where they had first met. She had not been there in years, but it was maintained as part of the ranch holdings. Standing in front of it, Olivia remembered that desperate morning when she had collapsed in the snow, when Russell had carried her inside and saved her life in every way that mattered. She walked around to the spot where she had fallen and knelt there, placing her hand on the ground. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing me as worth saving. Thank you for 43 years of love and laughter and partnership. Thank you for showing me what I was capable of, what life could be. I miss you so much it feels like I cannot breathe, but I would not trade a single moment of our time together to make this pain go away. You were worth it. We were worth it. The wind rustled through the aspens, and for a moment, Olivia could almost feel Russell's presence beside her. She stood, wiping her eyes, and looked at the mountains rising in the distance. She was 70 years old, and she still had work to do, grandchildren to spoil, a legacy to tend. I will see you again, she promised the empty air. But not yet. I am not done yet. Olivia returned to Arizona and threw herself back into her work. The refuge still needed her guidance, and there were always women who needed help. She also began writing down her story, wanting to leave a record for her descendants about where they came from and what their grandmother had overcome. She lived another 7 years, active and engaged until the very end. She got to meet several more great-grandchildren and even one great-great-grandchild. She saw James become a judge known for his fairness and compassion. She attended Rose's retirement party after 40 years of teaching. She saw Thomas's children take over the ranch, the 4th generation to work the land Russell had claimed. On a warm evening in October 1932, Olivia sat on her porch in Jerome Junction, watching the sunset. She was 77 years old, and she was tired. But it was a good tired, the kind that came from a life well lived. Her daughter Rose sat beside her, knitting in the fading light. "You should come inside soon, Mother. It is getting chilly." "In a moment," Olivia said. "I want to watch the stars come out." As the sky darkened and the first stars appeared, Olivia felt a deep sense of peace settle over her. She had done it. She had escaped the nightmare of her first marriage and built a life full of meaning and love. She had helped countless other women do the same. She had raised good children who were raising good children of their own. The girl who had walked barefoot through snow had become a woman who changed the world, one life at a time. "Rose," she said softly, "do you remember the story I told you about how I met your father?" "Of course," Rose said. "You have told it 100 times. Tell it to your children and grandchildren. Make sure they know that sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead us to the best. Make sure they know that leaving a bad situation is not failure, it is courage. And make sure they know that real love, the kind your father and I had, is built on respect and partnership and genuine care for each other's happiness." "I will, Mother. I promise." Olivia closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of the evening air on her face. In her mind, she was young again, stumbling through snow toward a cabin where a kind stranger waited. She could see Russell's face as he looked up from his work, see the concern in his eyes as he rushed to help her. She could feel his arms lifting her, hear his voice telling her she was safe. "Run no more," he had told her with those boots, with his actions, with every day they spent together. "You are home now. You are safe. You are loved." And she had been for the rest of her long and beautiful life. Olivia Garrett passed away peacefully that night, surrounded by her children. She left behind a legacy of courage and compassion, a family that spanned generations, and a refuge that continued to help women find their way to safety and new beginnings. At her funeral, her grandson read from the memoir she had written, sharing the story of the barefoot woman in the snow and the cowboy who gave her boots and told her to run no more. There was not a dry eye in the church. They buried her beside Russell on a hillside overlooking both the mountains of Colorado and the desert of Arizona, visible depending on which direction you looked. It seemed fitting for a woman who had loved both places, who had found different kinds of peace in each landscape. On her headstone, her children inscribed the words she had chosen years before. "She walked through snow in bare feet and found love on the other side. Beloved wife, mother, grandmother, and friend to all who needed one." Years later, The refuge Olivia founded would be renamed the Olivia Garrett House for Women in Need, and it would continue her work well into the 21st century. Her great-great-grandchildren would grow up knowing her story, inspired by her courage and determination. The boots Russell had made for her, carefully preserved by the family, would eventually be donated to a museum as a symbol of hope and new beginnings. Visitors would read the placard explaining their significance and be moved by the love story they represented. But perhaps the most important legacy Olivia left was not visible or tangible. It was the example she set, the proof that it was never too late to change your life, to demand better, to walk away from what hurt you and toward what healed you. It was the knowledge that sometimes strangers become saviors, that kindness can change the trajectory of a life, and that love, when it is real and true, has the power to transform everything. Somewhere in the mountains of Colorado, snow still falls on winter mornings, covering the ground in pristine white. And somewhere in the desert of Arizona, the sun still sets in shades of orange and gold. Both places hold the memory of a woman who refused to give up, and a man who showed her that she did not have to run anymore. Their love story became legend in both territories, passed down through generations as a reminder that even in the wildest, hardest times, love and kindness could flourish. That a woman walking barefoot through snow could find not just survival, but joy. That a simple act of compassion, like making boots for someone in need, could change two lives forever. And in the end, that was the truth that Olivia Garrett carried with her from that desperate morning in 1882 until her peaceful passing in 1932. Love, real love, does not chain you or break you. It lifts you up, gives you wings, and says, "Run no more. You are home."